Hello guys, welcome to Peer Tutoring Club's AP Statistics course, and I'm your AP Stat tutor, David Cho. Before we move on to our first lesson, let's take a look at what this course is going to be about. Well, obviously, this course is for students who are planning to take the 2024 May AP Statistics exam. So, we will focus on 1. Important concepts required to solve problems on the test. 2. After each unit, we will have a video for MCQs and FRQs on past AP exams. For example, after we're done with the concepts in Unit 1, we'll try some MCQs and FRQs problem on one variable data. And lastly, I'll also provide some tips for the AP exam as well. On the bottom right corner, we have a table that shows exam weighting for the MCQ section. To give you an overview of these units, I'll simply just explain them one by one. So, for Unit 1, exploring one variable data, we will learn fundamental concepts that will become a foundation for the entire AP Statistics course. We will cover some key terms and way to interpret data and the way to express those data in one sentence. For Unit 2, exploring two variable data, we will learn how to interpret the correlation between two different variables. And also, we'll learn how to express their relationship in terms of statistics. For Unit 3, collecting data, we will learn how to, collect data for our samples. And for for example, we can gather 12 data students at random, but instead, we can also choose one student from each grade level so that we can get 12 students. For Unit 4, probability random variables, we will learn about how probability functions and random variables can work in statistics. In Unit 5, we'll learn how to find sampling distributions. For Unit 6, 7, and 8, we will learn about how to find the statistical significance of a data. And finally, for Unit 9, we will learn how to make inference for a slope of a data. Okay, now let's move on to our first lesson, the one variable data. So the first method or way that we can express our one variable data is using a dot plot. Well, dot plot is a pretty straightforward method to express one variable data. So if you look at our example here, let's say that this is a number of goals that one soccer player made throughout the season. So we can see there are one dot above 43, three dots above 44, two dots above 45, zero dots over 46, and finally one dot over 47. Well, you might have already noticed, but that dots above the number is frequency, which means, so for example, we have three players that made 44 goals this season. And similarly, two players have made 45 goals for this season, and one player made 43, another player made 47. Now let's move on. Let's take a look at some questions in Khan Academy. Here, reading dot plots and frequency table. So here's our problem about dot plot. It says the following dot plot shows the mass of each rock in Nija's rock collection. Each dot plot represents a different rock. So here we can see the number here are mass in grams, and as we covered in our slide, the number of dots above each number is the frequency. So let's see, how many rocks are in Nija's collection? This is pretty simple. You can just count all the number of every single dot and add all of them and write it down here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dots in total. So if we type 10 here, and yay, we got this correct. Let's take a look at next one. It's a one-way variable data or one-way table. So here I made a table that represents the number of students who has a specific color as their favorite color. So we have 10 students here who said their favorite color is red, 20 students for blue, 15 for yellow, 8 for brown, and lastly 9 for all the other colors. Same as dot plot, let's take a look at some example problems. Well, here. So the following frequency table shows the number of choice pictures that have been published in each of the local magazines. Well, we can see that number of pictures, number of magazines. So it seems like we have two magazines that have no pictures, one magazine that has one picture, three magazines that have two pictures, two magazines that has three pictures, and finally one magazine that has four pictures. It says how many magazines published two or more of choice pictures. Well, if it's two or more, we should consider the part that has two, three, or four pictures. And if we add these numbers, 3 to 1, it is going to be 6. Yay. Alright, let's move on to our next one, which is stem plot. So, the stem plot graph consists of mainly two major parts. One is called stem and the other one is called leaf. So let's take a look at how each one exactly work. So usually the stem represents the 10th digit of the number and the leaf represents the 1st digit of the number. So for example, this data right here, the 1 and 7 represents 17, and this data right here represent 39. And also, it is really important for every single graph that we have to add title for each graph. And especially for stem plot graph, we have to include a thing called key. A key is a way that the graph shows how stem and leaf work. So for example, it says key, if 4 is on stem and 1 is on leaf, it represents 41 pence. So for example, this one can be 47 pence and this one can be 17 pence. Let's try out some example problems. Let's go to stem plot problems and let's try two of them. A zookeeper published the following stem and leaf plots showing the number of lizards at each major zoo in the country. Okay, so the first thing I'll do when solving stem plot graph is going to read the description or the title of the graph so that I can get a brief understanding on what the data try to say, and the key. Because usually people might think, oh, the stem parts will represent the 10th digit and the leaf part will represent the 1st digit. But for some example, they might represent a 100th digit on the leaf, and they might use like something like 11, 12, 53 for leaf so that they can make the numbers that are greater than 99. So, luckily in this case, it was just 10th digit and 1st digit. So it says how many zoos have more than 26 lizards? So 26 lizard is right over here. And beginning from this one, 28, they're all going to be, they're all going to have more than 26 lizards. So if we count the number of the leaf, then I think that's going to be the answer. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 zoos that have more than 26 lizards. And also for AP Statistics exam, uh, it's really important to read the uh, question like multiple times, because they might ask like something like more than 26, or they might also ask something like more than or equal to 26. So you have to be careful of inclusive and exclusive variables. If we check the answer, we got it correct. Let's try another one before we move on to our next one-way variable data. So this one, it says, the government published the following stem and leaf plot showing the number of bears at each major zoo in the country. Well, this time also we have 10th digit for stem and 1st digit for leaf. It says, how many zoos have fewer than 50 bears? So, if we read the question carefully, we can make sure that these 50, should not be included in our answer. So, and it says fewer than 50 bears, so we have to count all the numbers from 18 to 47. And if we count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We have 15 zoos that have fewer than 50 bears. Yay, we got it correct. And now let's move on to the last one, which is histogram. I just brought one example from Khan Academy. It says the histograms below show the daily high temperatures in degrees Celsius that were recorded during July 2013 in each city. Okay, so you can see there are some bar graphs that are right next to each other, and each of them has different heights. So let's take a look at here, this part. It says 21 to 24. There are 3 days that belongs to this group, and what these numbers represent is somewhat complicated, because let's say if we want to interpret this part where I magnified on the right right part of the slide, we have to include the number that is on the left side. However, we should not include the number that is not on the right side. So I want you to pause the video and think what this portion of the graph represents, or what is the meaning of this little graph. Okay, so the correct answer should be there are 3 days where the temperature was higher than or equal to 21, and at the same time lower than 24. You should really be careful not to include the upper bound of the histogram. Okay, now let's move on to our Khan Academy. Where is it? Histogram. Mm, read histogram. So it says you should always read the title first. So it says balls made in each game of Watson's Billiard Tournament, and number of balls made and number of games. Oh, this one luckily they didn't provide just numbers. They provide us the range of the number of balls made for each game so that, well, we might not get confused that easily. So it says how many more games had 12 to 15 balls made than to 4 to 7 balls made. Oh, so this is a comparison problem for histogram bar graph. And the let's say, two parts that we're comparing are this part and this part. Let's interpret this part first. So we have 8 games that had 12 to 15 balls made, and we have only one game that made 4 to 7 balls. So if we subtract 1 from 8, that's going to be 7. Okay, let's try another question and end our lesson. It says mass of each pumpkin in Leonard's patch. And below here is mass, and the vertical part of the graph is number of pumpkins. How many pumpkins are in Leonard's patch? Well, for this question, you don't really have to care about the range of the mass. You just have to count the number of like total number of pumpkins. For example, here we have 4 pumpkins that are between 0 and 3, 5 pumpkins that are between 3 and 6, and so on. If we add all the numbers here, we have to add 4 plus 5, that is 9, 9 plus 8, that is 17, 17 plus 6, that's 23, and 23 plus 2 is 25. So we have 25 pumpkins in total. Yay. Okay, before I end today's class, I'll just do a quick review for each concept that we learned. So for dot plot, we learned that the horizontal part is the number, and the vertical part, they represent the frequency by number of dots. Second, the one variable data table shows the frequency with number, which may be more straightforward to understand compared to the dot plot. And the stem plot, consists of 2 parts, stem and leaf, and it also have a thing called key that helps you understand how stem and leaf work in the graph. And lastly, we learned histogram, and the important thing here is that you have to include the lower bound, but you shouldn't include the upper bound. I hope this video helped you for AP Statistics, and see you next time. Thank you.